So there are two ways in life that you can gain experience. The first, the obvious one, is that you can live it yourself. The second one is that you can gain it from other people. And on that basis, I thought it might be useful if I shared a few of my experiences. So that's what this video is all about. So hi, my name's Gareth Williams. I've been working for over 40 years now, and I have amassed two broad streams of experience. One is I've worked half of my career in big blue chip organisations, and then I've also worked for 20 odd years as a one-man operation. But let's look at what I've learned in terms of the 5 key things which I think are really useful things to know so that you don't make any mistakes associated with them and hopefully can learn from my own experience. So point 1, nothing is as important as it seems when you go back to it later on. So what I mean by that is when you look at things which happen to you over a longer period, they can feel like cataclysmic disasters. Most of the time they're not. So for example, in my career, I've been made redundant 3 times. Each time it felt like the world was falling in and what the hell was I going to do next? It was an earth-shattering experience. With the benefit of hindsight, it turns out that it was nothing of the sort really, and I recovered quite quickly from each of those disasters. Additionally, I've started 2 or 3 businesses now. I had to shut one, lost a great deal of money on it, but I recovered from that and I've been lucrative in my current business for the last 20 years. So the key thing to take away from that is although these events feel like they are going to have an enormous impact upon you, they don't necessarily. Provided you're willing to work through them, you quickly recover and you can move on to greater things. So point 2, everybody needs to be a salesman, and that includes everybody in business, whether it's an accountant, whether it's an office worker, whether it's a board director in charge of IT. Everybody should understand about sales. The reason why I'm putting this as a key learning from my own career is that one time when I was made redundant, I needed to get income quickly. So I started in a selling role. I learned more in 6 months selling about the whole of my career than I did in anything else. The sheer fact of understanding the need to make things clear to the recipient of anything that you're doing in your work, whether it's writing a report, doing a presentation, being in a meeting and looking to persuade people of your point of view, all of that. You learn so much if you apply sales principles to the task that you're undertaking. I think it's a massive benefit to understand sales and to have some grounding in it. And if you don't want to be a salesman, you can still read books about it and understand things from the sales point of view. It'll hold you in really good stead. So point 3, big firms, big organizations are great at wrapping you and keeping you right up to the moment that they don't need you anymore, and then they drop you. When you're working for a big firm, you're in a relationship with them. What you have to understand is the nature of that relationship. Many big organizations attempt to turn that relationship into something which they will call something like the family, all those sorts of phrases which suggest it's something which is non-contractual, something which has obligations from you which are more than transactional. That works perfectly well, and it means that you can enjoy your work on the basis that it's almost like being in a family. However, you're not in a family, so when things turn difficult, when firms have decisions to make, they will look oftentimes straight away at one of their biggest expenses, which is frequently payroll, and they will forget the whole ethos of the family and they will cut you away without any issue whatsoever. I'm not suggesting this is something that you need to necessarily always have in the forefront of your mind. Just be aware that the relationship between you and your firm that you're employed by is something that you need to be aware of as being a contractual relationship and not a family relationship. Point 4 is quite a personal one, and it's quite hard to do. And I'm just calling it listen to your instincts. And the reason why I've chosen this is that sometimes if you're a bit like me and you're quite analytical, you can rationalize things to the point where you discount anything that you can't put a number to or do a presentation on. Sometimes life is a bit less clear, and it can represent a real danger for you if you always discount your instincts. I'm going to give you one example on this. If you think I'm in the business of bashing big organizations, this arose when I left all the big organizations and I started as a one-person business. I had the opportunity to join an organization as a self-employed person. It involved me putting in quite a substantial sum into the organization in order that I could influence it. I met the owner of the organization several times, and each time he sounded clear and logical and concise, and the offer seemed pretty good. There was only one thing that was ticking away in the back of my mind throughout all of the visits that I had with him, and that was I literally just didn't like the guy. There was something about him that was in some way off, and it made me a little uneasy. However, with my best finance, I rationalized things out. I looked at the offer, I looked at the contract that I was going to sign. I had lawyers look at it. I thought, no, this all holds water. What I hadn't realized was that the contract was written in a way that if push came to shove, the personality of the main owner would always take precedence over any business issues. So when things got tight and things needed organizing and sorting out, they happened according to his view, and he ignored everything to do with what I thought. Consequently, the business got into severe difficulty. Cutting to the chase, I didn't lose my shirt, but I lost almost all of my investment, which was a substantial six-figure sum. That was one of those disasters, but it was a great learning, because had I listened to my instincts right at the beginning, I might well have backed off and backed away from the whole deal, saving me a large sum of money. So always listen to your own instincts and be prepared to afford them as much time as you would your the balance sheet and anything else that you're listening to, and the presentations. So point 5 is, even when things get really bad, like they did in point 4, you can always find a positive if you look for it. Nothing is ever a complete disaster, but you have to look for the positives. So going back to the example in point 4, having severed my relationship with the organization that had cost me so much money, I thought, right, well, now I'm in really deep trouble, because not only do I not have a big organization that I can just come in and become an employee of, but I also have a family, I have expenses, and so what am I going to do? The temptation to go back and become an employee was huge, and I thought, should I do it? But when I looked quietly and thoughtfully at what I had done over the 4 years that I'd had in the previous organization where I was an investor, I realized I'd learned an entirely new skill set, and that was about rolling out big programs of work and managing them. So I thought, well, I could actually become a consultancy business in my own right and work on that basis. And because I looked at the disaster of what had happened previously and looked for the positives, I discovered that there was one, and that's led me to 20 years of enjoyable work. And I am thrilled to say that I never went back and worked for a large organization again. So those are my 5 points. I'm not suggesting that they will all be always relevant to you. What I am suggesting is that if you listen to them, you may avoid having to learn the hard way and gain the experience the expensive way, like I did. So that's my first overall video on the theme of Go It Alone. I'm going to be moving on in future videos to how you can move from the big corporate environment into a smaller one-person business style environment. I did it. I've got 20 years experience of it, and that's what I'm going to be talking about in coming videos. I hope you stick around, subscribe. They'll be coming out quite regularly from now on.